I'm Jack McKissick, and welcome to Powerchord TV Raw. Powerchord is a radio show that runs on the iTunes station U-Rock. Every week on the show, we have a featured interview. These are those interviews, live, uncut, uncensored, and you get to see them as they happen. This week's episode is with Stevie Rachelle. Now, Stevie was the singer for a band called TUFF that grew up on the Sunset Strip in the middle of all the hair bands, which is why we've decided to do this episode from Apartment 12 Hair Studio. We figured it was just appropriate. So here's our interview with Stevie Rachelle when we caught up with him in Los Angeles. This is Powerchord TV Raw. Being a sports fan, we're going to start with the stats.
Okay.
Okay. Number of years you played on the Strip before you got your big break and sign?
Well, I would say it would be in total 4. I mean, I came to Los Angeles in the summer of '87, so we hit the ground running that summer. So '87, '88, '89, and '90, which we've technically signed our deal in 1990 and recorded. Actually, starting the day after Christmas in 1990. So December 26th was the day one in the studio, and then by spring of '91 is when the record came out.
Okay, good. How many flyers would you print per show?
Well, we were definitely one of the kings of that, I think. We would usually go to the copy centers, which before, they might have been called Kinkos, but there was like mom and pops that did great deals for some of the bands. And they had that what would you call it, that bundle box of paper. I think that was 10,000 sheets, and we would sometimes make 2 of those for a show. So easily one box, which was 10,000 pieces of paper, 10 reams of 100 or something like that. Is 1,000. I mean, we would do 10,000. I mean, maybe at times double that, 20,000 sheets.
It's amazing. It's totally amazing.
Which was about a 2-month process. You didn't play the Strip every month. Mm-hmm. At least that wasn't the plan. Every few months, maybe even a quarter. Every 3 months you'd do a big show, a troubadour show. 3 months later, a whiskey show. And after within about a 2-year period, we got to the point where we could do double nights, do it a Friday, Saturday, or something at Gazzari's. And for that, we would definitely end up doing 20,000, which is a lot.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
A lot of them were on the ground all night as well, but we made our point,
Yes, absolutely. How many hits a week does Metal Sludge average?
Today? Or in 2000.
2000 and today.
Well, I know that for a variation of reasons, the internet has obviously changed drastically. When Metal Sludge debuted online, it was the summer of, technically September of 1998. That's 15 years ago.
Yeah. Before
MySpace, before Facebook, before Twitter, before Instagram, before YouTube, before any of that. And we were, one of the only places that people could kind of congregate and or meet electronically that were really into this type of music, and that was kind of the goal, was to give people a place where they could read about it, learn about it for younger people, and of course discuss their opinions, pros, cons, and everything in between. And in the early days, I think on our first day we had like 28 people look at the site, which was like, the next day was like 38, and then 59, and then 100. And at one point it was getting where we were getting 20 or 30,000 unique hits in a day, which, again, this is still late 90s, early 2000s, and that was pretty happening at the point where there was nothing else for anyone else to look at. Yeah. When competition stepped in and we had a MySpace, a place for friends to meet, and then eventually others, it kind of took away from us, but at the same time it helped. Sadly, I think one of the biggest days we ever had was after Dimebag got killed.
Oh, yeah.
We were one of the few places on the net, along with KNAC. I think Blabbermouth was actually, making an impact by that point. And, obviously Dimebag was a hero within the heavy metal world, the rock world, and had a lot of roots with a lot of people from all walks of those kind of bands, 80s bands, hair bands, and so we were obviously one of the few places where you could get some information about him detailed beyond what was suddenly on CNN.
Right.
And I want to say that there was a few days for a couple of weeks there we were getting like 100,000 people looking at the site, but Time Magazine contacted me about that.
Wow. Wow.
And actually did an interview with me on the phone, which I don't know if I don't think it evolved into an article, but it was pretty tragic. A rock hero gets gunned down on stage is pretty brutal.
Yeah.
So
and one of our friends, I'm sure you're friends with him too, Michael Hannon from Salty Dog.
Right.
He played there the day before. Mm-hmm. That same.
He's an Ohio boy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. He's still out there. How many countries have you played in with TUFF?
The original lineup or my lineup?
You.
I've taken the TUFF brand around the world and played in, I'd say, 20 countries.
Wow.
I've been to Australia, been to Brazil a couple times, been to Mexico, never been to Canada.
How odd.
Probably played 40 of the lower 48 U.S. states. And in Europe, I mean, I've probably been to Europe 10 times in the last 10 or 12 years, and played all of them. Germany, Belgium, Switzerland, Italy, Spain, Denmark, Sweden, England, France, Romania. Not many 80s hair bands can say they played Romania, but I did. Well, it was great. It was small, but it was awesome. And they loved it.
That's awesome. For somebody who is not from this area and wasn't around when the Strip was at its height, how would you describe it to them?
You can. It's like if somebody says, what was Studio 54 like in New York City in 1979 at the height of cocaine and disco?
Sure.
If you weren't there, you can't even really imagine what it was like. But, for an 80s fan, I knew that when I really started getting into this kind of music, which was like 83, 84, during the Quiet Riot, Twisted Sister, Motley Crue, Rat phase, and seeing it on MTV, and then picking up Hit Parader magazine and reading about the Whiskey A Go-Go. And that's where Motley Crue played, or reading about the Troubadour and the Roxy on Sunset Strip. Like, that to me was like, that was Disneyland to me, or that was like the Wizard of Oz. It was just like, oh my God, can I fucking swear on here? I'm on the verge of saying the F word, and I'm trying to control it. So when I came here in the summer of '87, I have to say it was way more than I even expected. And what was really kind of cool, I don't want to say it was disappointing because it wasn't, but it was kind of shocking, is that some of the clubs seemed smaller than I thought, and they were all so close to each other.
Yes.
Which a lot of people don't understand, that from the Viper Room, which wasn't the Viper Room then, it was called the Central, and previous to that was Filthy McNasty's, is on one corner. Then you go maybe 50 to 70 yards, and then the opposite corner, half a block down, is the Whiskey Go-Go. And then you go 20 feet, and that was what became the Cat Club eventually. Not the Cat House, but the Cat Club. Right. That's many years past, or post the 80s. And then you went a full block and you had the Roxy. And right next door, literally door to door, separated by maybe 50 steps, is the Rainbow.
Right.
And then you go, next door is the Bank, and you go across the street and there is Gazzari's, and you go another half a block and there's Geffen Records, and like all this stuff was literally within about a 2 football field span max.
Right.
Like 6, 7 places that were really key, and then to get to the Troubadour you had to go south on Doheny.
It was such a walk.
6 blocks, yeah, that was a long walk.
Uphill is a walk.
Well, it was uphill coming from the Troubadour, but going down there was downhill. So all of this stuff was really close, and to have the Whiskey, the Roxy, the Rainbow, and Gazzari's all being within, literally a 2-minute walk max.
Yep.
But you couldn't walk it in 2 minutes.
Wait.
Because it was 5,000 people on the street. So it was like you were going through a concert of people outside,
Exactly.
And it was amazing. I mean, to be in that time was something that, for all of us that were there, even the local bands became legends, or rock stars. Being a rock star on the Sunset Strip was definitely an achievement, though, even at that level, because the competition was so fierce that literally 5 nights a week minimum, You know, some clubs might go dark one night, but I mean, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you had Sunday nights, you know, with this Exposure Club, or Monday night was the Whiskey No Bozo Jam, and a lot of these clubs had 5, 6, sometimes 7 bands per night, every night.
All original.
Exactly, and so you had 4 or 5 bands at Gazzari's, 4 or 5 bands at the Roxy, 4 or 5 bands at the Whiskey. You know, so within, you know, a 3 or 4 hour block, you had the choice to see one of 15 to 20 or 25 bands, just within a 1 or 2 block radius, you know. So to the bands that actually made that trek to headliner status and playing in front of a sold out club, you really had, you know, put your foot in the ground and made an impact as a rock star, essentially, you know, at that time. And then for those that got lucky, that got a deal and got to go do that in 50, 70, or 100 other markets across the U.S., it was like, okay, now we really made it. Which really, in retrospect, we didn't make it, but some of us did, or some of them did, you know.
Yeah. A lot of people who look at like your band playing out on the Sunset Strip, and they think, oh, that's great. You get to go out there, you get to play, all that stuff. Take me through, say, you're playing a show at the Whiskey on Saturday. Take me from the Sunday before up to that show and everything that you had to do to get ready for that show.
Well,
actually, take me from the Friday before, because that would probably be better.
Usually, like I said, we would, you know, TUFF out of the box was goal-oriented beyond Sunset Strip.
Right.
You know, our first show together was at the Roxy in August of '87. The next month we went to Phoenix, which is where the band's roots were. We played there in early September. Then we came back and played, I believe, the Troubadour in October. And then, so within a very short period of time, we already started to say we're going to play LA, and then a couple weeks later we're going to go to Phoenix.
Right.
And then, you know, that ended up being like, we're going to play LA on Friday, Orange County on Saturday, then a week off, then we go play Phoenix on Friday and Tucson on Saturday. And then we'd come back and be in LA, we'd play 2 months later in LA on a Friday. Saturday would be somewhere maybe in the Valley. Then the following week we go to San Francisco on a Friday and come back and play Fresno on a Saturday. And then we started to do Vegas on a Friday and Salt Lake on a Saturday. So we started kind of spider webbing out on the weekends that we didn't always play LA.
Right.
If we were in town, though, we absolutely went out and flyered and quote-unquote promoted, or whatever you wanted to call it, at whatever club was happening. You know, and for the people that lived here, there was certain nights where certain things were happening. Like the Cat House was a Tuesday night specialty show.
Yes.
It was just one night, and a lot of people always think like, what was the Cat House like on a Friday? Well, the Cat House was never like on a Friday because it never happened on a Friday. It was only on Tuesday nights. And that was a great idea by Ricky and Tammy to do that, because Friday and Saturday were so competitive for the weekend slots.
Sure.
At one point, that show happened on Sundays, which was the Exposure 54 Club off Santa Monica Boulevard. That became like the Sunday night clicky place to go. Monday night was the No Bozo Jam at the Whiskey, which Love Hate was the house band for many years, and that kind of made a little impact. And, you know, fast forward 10, 15, now 20 years, Steel Panther made, you know, Metal Shop, Metal School, Steel Panther made the Monday night famous at the Viper Room, and then the Roxy and the Key Club, and now they're bigger than 90% of the bands they emulated, and they fucking rule. So, but we did everything based around what was happening. You know, if we were going to promote on Tuesday, it would obviously be at the Cat House, and we'd rehearse as well. You know, we rehearsed at least 3 times a week. So a lot of times rehearsal would be like Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, go out, promote Friday, Saturday, or play Friday, Saturday. Sunday might be the day we're all laying around recovering by the pool.
Right.
In January, horrible, and 75 degrees and sunny, because that's the way it is in Southern California all the time. But we were always working.
Yeah, full-time job.
We were always working and planning and promoting and micromanaging and putting together like what we were going to do next for a couple of months in advance, you know?
It was the smart way to do it. I mean, instead of just going.
None of us had like, hey, my dad's got a plumbing company and I got to go work, you know, cutting pipes with him all week to make $300. Like, none of us did that. A couple of us had a phone sales job or something in the morning once in a while, but there was no like, hey, I'm going to go to college now. You know, we were in a band, we were going to go on tour, we were going to get signed. You know, the goal was Motley Crue.
Right.
Clearly we fell, you know, several ladder rungs short, but, you know, we were very dedicated. And for that 3, 4, 5 year block, that is why we did, I believe, have the success we did, because there was, we were blinded to the outside world and nothing else mattered.
Damn, size does matter. That's our episode with Stevie Rachelle. For more, check out www.powerchordtv.com. What, you thought these highlights were real?